I never thought I would find love again at 58. My name is David Chun, and after my divorce 5 years ago, I had accepted that my life would be quiet and alone. I spent my days managing my small bookstore in the suburbs, teaching myself to be content with silence. Then one autumn morning, everything changed. She walked into my shop wearing fox ears. At first, I thought she was one of those young people who dress up for fun, but something about her stopped me in my tracks. Her long copper hair caught the morning light, and her green eyes held a depth that spoke of someone who had lived and loved and lost. She was in her early 50s, I guess, with laugh lines around her eyes that made her smile radiant. Her name was Victoria. She picked up a book of poetry from the shelf, and our fingers touched. That simple moment felt like coming home after a long journey. We talked for 3 hours that day. She told me about her late husband, who had passed 2 years before, about how she had started wearing the fox ears because he used to call her his little fox. It was her way of keeping his memory alive while still living her own life. I understood that kind of grief. Over the next few months, Victoria came to the bookstore every week. We would sit in the corner with coffee and talk about books and life and all the things we had learned along the way. She made me laugh in a way I had forgotten was possible. When I finally gathered the courage to ask for dinner, she said yes without hesitation. Our courtship was gentle and patient. We both knew the value of taking things slow. We had been through enough in life to know that real love cannot be rushed. 6 months later, I asked her to marry me in the same corner of the bookstore where we had first sat together. She cried and said yes, and I felt young again. That was a year ago. Now we live together in my small house with a garden she loves. And every evening without fail she insists that I walk her, not just a stroll around the block, but a proper walk through the neighborhood park. She still wears her fox ears. At first, I was embarrassed. What would the neighbors think? 2 people in their 50s walking hand in hand, while she wore fox ears like some costume. But Victoria would take my hand and smile at me with those green eyes and say, "David, I spent too many years worrying what people thought. Life is too short for that now." So every evening at 6, I take her hand and we walk. She loops her arm through mine, and we move slowly through the tree-lined paths. Sometimes we talk about our day. Sometimes we walk in comfortable silence. She points out birds and flowers and the way the sunset colors the clouds. She notices beauty in everything. One evening as we walked past a bench where an elderly couple sat feeding pigeons, a woman called out to us. She said she and her husband had been watching us walk together for months. She said we reminded her of when they were younger, that seeing us made her remember that love and playfulness do not have an expiration date. Victoria squeezed my hand, and I felt grateful. There are times when she gets tired. Her knees ache, and some days are harder than others. On those evenings, we walk shorter distances. I offered once to skip our walk, but she looked at me with such sadness. She said, "David, these walks are not just exercise. They are us choosing each other every single day. They are us saying that despite everything life has thrown at us, we still want to experience the world together." I never suggested skipping again. Last week something happened that made me understand even more deeply why these walks matter. We were on our usual route when Victoria stopped suddenly. Her hand gripped mine tightly. I looked at her face and saw tears streaming down her cheeks. She was staring at a young couple arguing on a park bench. The woman was shouting about feeling taken for granted. The man sat with his head down, looking defeated. Victoria watched them for a long moment. Then she turned to me and said I used to fight with Thomas about silly things, about him not listening or not helping enough around the house. I wasted so much time being angry about small things. When he got sick, I would have given anything for one more argument, one more normal boring day, one more walk together. That is why I need these walks, David, because I know now that nothing is guaranteed. Not tomorrow, not next week, not next year. These walks are my way of honoring every moment I have with you. I held her close while she cried. The young couple eventually stopped arguing and left. I wondered if they understood how precious their time together was. Victoria and I stood there in the fading light. Then she wiped her eyes, adjusted her fox ears, and smiled at me. "Shall we continue?" she asked. And we did. Tonight, as I lace up my walking shoes, I hear her in the bedroom getting ready. She is humming a song her late husband used to sing. I used to feel jealous of his memory, but I understand now that her capacity to love me so fully comes partly from having loved him. She knows how to cherish someone. She knows that love is a choice you make every single day. She appears at the doorway wearing her fox ears and a light jacket. Her copper hair is pulled back, and her green eyes sparkle with anticipation. Ready, she asks. Always, I reply. We step out into the cool evening air. She takes my arm, and we begin our walk. A neighbor waves to us and calls out "Evening, Mr. and Mrs. Chun." Victoria waves back with genuine warmth. As we walk through streets lined with maple trees, I think about all the years I spent alone. I think about how close I came to missing this, to missing her. I almost did not go to the bookstore that day 5 years ago when my marriage ended. I almost gave up on connection entirely, but something kept me going, and that something led me to this moment, to this woman with fox ears who insists on evening walks, who chooses joy and love despite knowing how quickly it can be taken away, who teaches me every day that it is never too late to start again. We reach our favorite spot by the pond where ducks gather. The sun is setting and the water reflects pink and gold. Victoria leans her head on my shoulder. "Thank you for walking me," she whispers. "Thank you for letting me," I reply. And I mean it with everything I have, because these walks are not just for her. They are for both of us. A reminder that love in your 50s and 60s can be just as deep and meaningful and playful as love at any age. That you can honor the past while still embracing the future. That wearing fox ears and holding hands and choosing each other every evening is not foolish. It is wise. It is the wisdom that comes from understanding that life is fleeting and precious, and that the simple act of walking together matters more than we ever realized when we were young. We turn toward home as darkness falls. Tomorrow evening at 6 we will do this again, and I will be grateful for every single step.